Facebook in Ukraine is like a nerve of Ukrainian politics. You cannot just see all world processes with your own optic.
I know that after one of the meetings with the President Zelenskyy, you was among of those people who refused to shake hands with him.
Hello world, it's KYIV Not Kiev, and it's one of our coolest videos when we are hosting a very special guest in our cozy studio.
My name is Tatiana Haiduk, that's my friend and colleague Polina Boychuk, and that is Victor Tregubov, our guest. Victor, pleasure to see you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Victor, thank you very much that you agreed to participate in our show. So, Victor is a journalist, a blogger, a political activist, a veteran, one of the founders of the Democratic Axe Party. Did I miss something?
No, I don't think so.
A cat owner?
Yeah,
Who else?
A cat owner, a husband, and so on, but I don't think we should specify all of my qualities.
Okay. In the course of our conversation, we're gonna touch upon a lot of points, but what I'd like to start with and what I'd like us to focus at is your blogging activity, first of all, because along with the blogs and columns you have in the leading Ukrainian media outlets, you use a Facebook platform as one of the main communication platforms. By the way, how many followers do you have on Facebook?
60,000 for now.
60,000!
Wow!
Oh my God, people, you need to subscribe to our channel because we would also like to have 60,000, at least 6,000, I don't know, maybe more or less. So it's pretty much. So my congratulations. Yeah, I believe that's years of hard work because come on, it's work.
Well, not exactly. It's more like years of big emotions. For me, blogging on Facebook never was a part of my job. It was actually something to make me maybe not so tired from my job. I worked as a political journalist, and for me it was always very restricting. So as a political journalist, you can't point fingers, you can't blame anyone, you can't say that person is an asshole and that person tells you bullshit. And you can't do that, but you want to actually. Actually, each day of your work, you want to do that. So for me, blogging was some way to make my mind less restricted, some way to tell my audience something I can't actually tell without with use of traditional media. So yeah, new media was for me some kind of relax.
Great, good to hear that. And coming back to Facebook, I would like us together to try to explain our mostly English-speaking audience from abroad. What is the difference between the Ukrainian Facebook and, for instance, the American one? I mean the content, because of course all the billions of Facebook users and are addicted to posting kittens and so on and so forth, because isn't it what Facebook was made for? But in Ukraine, at some point, Facebook turned into a political instrument. So, to your opinion, how come?
It's actually a pretty difficult question. It's not only for Ukraine, it is also for Middle East. And it's true that in US, for example, Twitter is much more political, while Facebook is more for students, housewives, and kitten pictures. I like kitten pictures. I always post pictures of my cats, but still the main content of my blog is political. How so? Maybe it depends from our political tradition and from our media tradition. We want to be heard, not with some simple statement, but we want to discuss our position. We want to make our position clear, and you actually need to have Facebook, not Twitter, for that. Twitter is too short for you.
So actually, the traditional media is a one-way road. When, for example, the author of the column expresses its own opinion, but the readers cannot express their own opinion on this or that. But Facebook provides such an opportunity. So that's the secret why the Facebook now is so powerful. And the comments are no less important than the texts itself.
That's actually the feature of Web 2.0, yeah. You can comment, you can participate, you can actually be a part of conversation, and that's what makes Facebook popular in political blogging and in political discussions. For now, the Facebook in Ukraine is like a nerve of Ukrainian politics, and actually many of communication, if not most, are made using Facebook. Of course, the traditional media are still pretty actual, yes, and you have to be on TV to be in politics, but social media plays a major role, and that role increasing with years. Each year that it's less television and more Facebook or Twitter or even Instagram or even TikTok.
TikTok. Well, coming back to the audience, we have found out that you have 60,000 subscribers. And you somehow influence what these people think, and you influence the information agenda of these people. You are just like a small or even medium scale media, right? Isn't this a huge responsibility for you?
It's hard for me because I used to perceive my Facebook as a part of myself, as part of my personal space where I want to express myself, my own thoughts. And if you consider yourself being a media, you restrict yourself, as I already told. You shouldn't tell some things, or you should be balanced, or you should be maybe...
Or you face censor.
Yeah. And that's hard for me because I always perceive Facebook as the space when I actually can tell everything I really think. So I prefer still to think that it's my own personal page, it's my own personal thoughts. It's hard because for now I am a co-leader of political party, and my words can be considered like a political position.
Yeah, they can reflect the position.
Yeah, but I still think that it's important for me to tell in what I actually think, even if sometimes it's someone don't like that.
And about the content, what things do you think are worth highlighting on your Facebook? What things do you consider important to highlight in your Facebook so that all the subscribers can see it and agree with your position?
That's the feature of Ukrainian Facebook, that we always have some agenda in that actual political agenda and social agenda that you actually cannot avoid. Even if I don't want to discuss, I don't know, maybe football, soccer, your friends can actually make you to discuss it, because if you see it in your feed, like football, okay, I will also tell something about football.
Okay, so let us change the question a bit. What's on the political agenda of Ukraine now that
is worth highlighting on your Facebook account?
Well, for example, now the main political conflict in Ukraine is a conflict between actually the, I'd say, core views of current Ukrainian authorities and core views of some Ukrainian part of active Ukrainian patriotic society. And that's a problem. And we saw that on our Independence Day, where actually there was separate march of veterans and separate state authorities who made their own holiday on a separate square, and it was so different in stylistics, it was so different in everything, because their holiday was like a concert. And the March of Veterans that attracted thousands and tens of thousands of people actually was much more like a parade, much more like a patriotic event, and it's difference in core stylistics. It's not only difference in views, it's difference in aesthetics. And that conflict in Ukraine now is really actual, and it is actual for Ukrainian social media too.
So, okay, so that's about a domestic policy. What about the international agenda? Because as our audience are mostly from abroad, or these are people somehow connected with Ukraine, are Ukrainians interested in something happening in the world, in some international affairs? What are the top
Of course,
topics.
but there are a problem. We're in war with Russia, and it makes some trace on every our discussion, and it changed our optics in view of the external world. For example, we are really into the Belarusian protests. We are really interested in that, but many of Ukrainians view Belarusian protests in context of Ukrainian-Russian conflict.
So you educate your audience about all of these things?
Well, yeah. Well, I'm trying. It's for each and every country, for each and every citizen, it's hard not to judge other country, but using your own standards. But you should. You should always keep in mind that the situation in every country is different. That you cannot just see all world processes with your own optic. Not even in Belarus, which is neighboring country, but with Poland, with United States, with EU, and so on.
You often criticize the current administration, current authorities. And my question is the following. I know that the authorities or the communication teams of the leaders of the country sometimes like to make friends with bloggers to win their loyalty. Sometimes they invite them for the off-rack meetings, because I mean, not just buying out a bunch of bloggers for money to get some message circulated. No, but more civilized approach, like inviting for the off-rack conversation, explaining them some governmental decisions to avoid misunderstandings and things of this kind. Have you ever been invited to the meetings like this?
Yes, and even not once and not even twice. I like actually that format because it's fun. It's form of public relations. It's not worth that press conference. Actually, it's just another structure. I met with maybe most of the Ukrainian politicians who actually practice this format.
Whom? Can you name them?
Including two presidents, Poroshenko and Zelenskyy, and Yermak, head of presidential office, and Avakov, head of Ministry of Internal Affairs, and Kuleba, head of Minister of External Affairs, and so on and so on. So actually pretty much, and not once. I made this conversation as a blogger, as a veteran, as a journalist, and even as a politician.
One more question regarding that. As we live in the open world, sometimes people know more about you than you maybe would like to know. I know that after one of the meetings with the President Zelenskyy, you was among of those people who refused to shake hands with him. Why?
Yeah, among two actually. It was maybe it was funny. I was there as a veteran, not as a politician or even as a blogger, not as a veteran, and I just afraid to shake his hand because I couldn't possibly know what will be the results of his presidential term. It could be disastrous. I have no, it was not some kind of trying to, I don't know, offend him, but it was kind of distrust. I cannot know if in several years I will want to cut this hand or not.
What about now? If you meet him today, would you shake his hand?
I couldn't. I couldn't, and I can explain why. It's because the same case of Sheremet. That's because of he actually legitimized by his presence on that infamous press conference where actually veterans were considered guilty. He legitimized that verdict, unofficial verdict, and it's for me it's partly because of him. The unguilty reef master Andrei Antonenko is now in jail. So if I now will shake his hand, it will be actually disrespect not for all my comrades in arms.
So you have already said numerous times that you're a veteran of the anti-terrorist operation of the Russian-Ukrainian war. And I suppose that you have joined the March of Defenders on the 24th of August, and I was also there, and it was really great. But my question is, if the community of veterans, if the community of these volunteers is that strong on weekdays, on just when there are on the days when there are no celebrations, no parades, no marches, do they support each other just every day?
It's a very complex question, actually. Of course, there are such kind of actions when all march united, but in I don't know, common standard time, it's not always so, because there are things that differ us. Sometimes political views, sometimes it's personal views, and also there are problems, and that's actually a great problem in rehabilitation of veterans that I think Americans are very well aware of. For example, Americans, yeah.
How to solve this issue on the national level somehow?
It was never solved anywhere. That's why Vietnam syndrome or Afghanistan syndrome was possible. But I think that that's the battle you should win yourself. That wasn't so actual for me, because my experience wasn't so hard or harsh or traumatizing. But that's actual for many people whose experience was. Was it shelling, or was it the death of their close friends, or something like that? But it's something they should actually win second time to make themselves, I don't know, successful in peaceful life.
We all now live in an informational war, or even multiple informational wars. So all the informational sphere is kind of battleground for me. So do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Whom do you consider your open enemy in this battleground?
I don't want to emphasize that, but for me that people are really enemies, but they are not enemies as a bloggers. They are enemies as a soldiers. They are enemies as other part of conflict. And why is that? Because I was raised in Crimea. I was born in Kiev, but I was raised in Crimea.
KYIV, not Kiev.
I don't know if I told it properly.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay. I was raised in Kiev, and I was raised in Crimea. I was born in Kiev, but I was raised there in Zelenskyy. And for me, I just know how information war goes and what's the result. Crimea is partly a result of informational war lost. And I know that I cannot go to the house I was raised because of that people. Because that people helped the aggressor to take my own home, to take lives of my not close but friends, and so on and so on. So they actually helped them to annex a part of my beloved Poland. That makes them not just people with another opinion, but actually a soldier of my enemy.
Okay, soldiers risk their lives in a battleground. So what do bloggers risk?
Well, sometimes during the hybrid warfare, even bloggers could be killed. Well, even journalists could be killed.
Okay,
it works that way, but
peaceful time?
Well, in peaceful times, I think they risk their reputation and they risk their, I don't know, sometimes they risk even personal, because some people that works on enemy openly can even be beaten on the street by some, I don't know, just veteran who passed by and saw their face and shooting. So it's possible, yeah.
Okay, that's good that they're risking their faces at least, because they can lost face in front of their followers, and they
Basically
can
risk a face in
get
many possible
something into their
understandings.
faces. Okay, that's good. I'm okay with that.
And probably one of the most difficult questions for this interview. What should the audience, the international audience, the foreign audience of KYIV NOT KIEV remember after they see the interview with Victor Tregubov? What should they keep in mind after they see this interview?
Well, I just tried to explain how things works in Ukrainian informational sphere, how things works in Ukrainian social media, or not even social media, but how Ukrainian optics works. And I think maybe this understanding could make people who are interested in what is going in Ukraine just more competent in that.
I know what should the KYIV NOT KIEV audience remember after watching our interview. They should remember to subscribe to Victor Tregubov in order to follow the notifications, the blogs, etc. Because I know that you also write in English.
Yeah, sometimes.
So don't forget to subscribe.
And subscribe KYIV NOT KIEV, because it's pretty good place to know what's going on in Ukraine.
Thank you.
Great. Victor, thank you very much for your time, for our conversation. It was a pleasure to host you. The pleasure is ours.
And thanks.
Thank you very much. We forgot to ask how to spell Kyiv in English.
Kyiv.
And in the letters?
K. Y. I. V.
Perfect. Yeah.
V for victory.
I forgot the phonetical alphabet, so.
or V for Victor.
V for Victor.
So this were Tatiana Haiduk and Polina Boychuk, Victor Tregubov.
This was KYIV NOT KIEV, and we are very happy you joined us today. See you next week. From Ukraine with love.